Hi, everyone. So I'm going to just talk to you very briefly in 10 minutes on how to prepare a poster. I assume that most of you are not going to be preparing the poster today, and you might refer to these later. So I tried to put in some details that you can go back to when it's time for you to actually prepare your poster. Part of this will be interactive, so please participate. And hello to Grady and to Midtown. Okay, so first things first, if you're coming back to look at this, then congratulations on getting a poster accepted. Just remember that this is a scientific presentation. Sometimes people refer to it as just a poster. It's really a presentation, so prepare as you would for any other presentation. You want to make sure you review it, you edit it, and practice. The main thing to do in advance is to read and follow the poster guidelines very carefully and in advance. A lot of meetings have very specific requirements in terms of size and shape and formatting and what to include and not include, and you definitely don't want to have the poster that doesn't meet those criteria, that doesn't fit on the board, etc. And really try to use your poster as your first step towards preparing your manuscript. Try to use this as an opportunity to organize your results and obtain feedback from others in your field so that you can move on to the next step. And then finally, start early. It takes a lot of time to prepare, review, edit, and print your poster, so you want to make sure you start well in advance. I would say to start working on it as soon as you know the poster is accepted, and try to have a draft ready to review within probably at least like 2 weeks before you're planning to present your poster. So what makes a good poster? So remember that people looking at a poster are going to spend probably 10 seconds or less looking at your poster from 10 feet away. And so you want your poster to be able to be eye-catching enough to make them stop, move a little bit closer, and stay a little longer. So how can you really attract attention? So number one is to try to keep your title short and in large font, and maybe something that draws interest. And again, make sure that it's visible clearly from 10 feet away. You want the text to be clear and concise. Overall, when you take all the text together, no more than 800 words. Try to use bullets, numbering, and headlines instead of just plain text in each of the sections. Try to add graphics, diagrams, and tables as much as possible in each section if possible. And make good use of colors and fonts, but don't use them so much that they're distracting. And then with regard to the layout, so the details are really critical. You want to make sure that everything is very consistent, the formatting is consistent, the layout is clean, that the text box sizes and alignments are consistent, that you use a consistent color scheme and font for your sections and your headings. You want to format your columns from top to bottom, left to right, so that you can sort of guide the viewer through your poster visually with your layout. So what to really do with formatting? So you want to pick a font that's clear and easy to read. Using a sans serif font like these two are probably best. You want to choose a text, color, and background that provides contrast. I personally like to have a light background in the text box and a dark text font. I think it's the easiest to read. With regard to font size, make sure that your font is not too small. Remember, you want people to be able to read it from a distance and even if there's a crowd around. And you guys can go back to these sort of guidelines in terms of font sizes for each of these various sections, but the title should be about 70 to 100 point, the author names no less than 50, your headings and subheadings no less than 40, the body text font size no less than 24, and for your captions no less than 18. Try not to use more than 2 to 3 colors and take particular care to make sure color contrasts are appropriate. So you want to be able to not use color combinations that are hard to read when they're laid upon each other. And there's a lot of available templates online in PowerPoint and others. There's some on the Prime website that are Emory templates that you can use as a starting point to help with this layout and formatting. So what are the sections you need to include? So most of these are pretty obvious based on the abstract that you've submitted, but in general for the abstract, unless it's required by the meeting, it's just going to take extra space on your poster. So you don't really need to include it. All of the components of your abstract are already there in your poster. You should prepare your poster in the general format as your submitted abstract, but you can update or add data that you may not have had space to submit in your abstract. So your introduction should be no more than 2 to 3 sentences in bullet format. You want to include your research question, plus or minus the hypothesis, as your first bullet, and then the second bullet on why your research question is important. For methods, basically what you did in 3 to 5 bullets. Here, if your methods lend itself, try to consider using diagrams, for example, for the study or experimental design, if the diagram can explain the concept in a simple way. For results, so you want to select only the most important results that support your overall message. In general, I prefer to have the poster, just the results section, be made up of tables and figures only, with using figure headings to convey the most important points. You don't need a lot of additional text in the results, just figures and tables. Make sure they're numbered and that they have appropriate legends and headings that describe everything. You want to be able to view the figure as is and be able to tell everything from it without needing extra explanation. Make sure the figures are high resolution and that they're clear when you blow them up to actual size. I have a lot of colleagues, and I've been in a similar situation where I print out my poster and the figure looks horrible, it's pixelated, you can't read anything. So make sure you blow it up on your screen to actual size. And then for the discussions and conclusions, summarize the main outcomes. Your second bullet for why it's interesting or important, and your third bullet for what are future directions. And then you can include references. You want to limit them to about 5, and you can reduce the font size a little bit for your references if they don't fit. And finally, acknowledgments. Don't forget to acknowledge your research team, your funding sources, and any conflicts of interest. So I'm just going to go through some examples, and I want you guys to critique them. I tried to use mostly examples of mine, so I'm putting myself on the spot here. And based on what I told you, so let's try to point out the strengths and weaknesses, okay? So here's my first poster. It's hard to read because I had to import it from a PDF, but I'll just tell you in advance that the figures were not pixelated in real life. So just looking at this poster, if you were to critique, so what are some strengths of this poster? So good use of color. So looking back, I actually didn't love some of the color contrasts. I think some of the red and the orange are a little bit hard to read on the white background, but I think that sort of overall, this background color is eye-catching. The sort of sticking to 2 to 3 colors and making the color themes consistent across headings is also good with this poster. What else? Yeah, so catchy titles so that people stop and might take a look at this poster if they're particularly interested in peanut butter. Anything else? So I pretty much thought, so yes, catchy title. In general, the font size was good. It's hard to read from here, but the sections were appropriately bulleted. There was consistent formatting with consistent width alignment. The layout is good. You can see it kind of draws the reader from left to right with the sections. And it was good use of figures. So there's figures that are appropriately dispersed. The results are mostly in figure format throughout. So what about some weaknesses? So I thought, so first of all, like I told you, the abstract really isn't needed. I can't remember if it was required for this meeting, but I would guess that it's not. The title is a little long, but I think it's sort of made up for the fact that it has sort of a catchy beginning part of the title. The tables and figures weren't numbered, and they don't have headings. I do think that the fact that they have appropriate legends below sort of makes up for that. And I found, looking back, that the color contrasts, especially for some of these headings, were a little bit difficult to read on the white background. So how about this one? So this is a different poster format. The meeting required a vertical style poster for this one. So this is also mine, so feel free to critique. So what about some strengths of this format? So the results are kind of, you can sort of look at one table to the next. You're not sort of skipping all around to look at, to compare different sections of the results. So basically, I think that this layout is a difficult layout. It's, I don't love looking at the poster from top bottom, but I thought that given this layout, given this sort of size and shape of a poster, the layout was good. You can read the poster easily from top to bottom. And I think that actually the tables and figures are pretty easy to read here, so you may be concerned that there's just too much in the table. And remember that it's okay to include more details in your table for a poster. Somebody who's really interested might want those details. They may be standing in front of your poster for a longer period of time. As long as you can keep it within the previous font guidance that I gave you, you can include some extra details in table format. What about the weaknesses? Does it look like too much text? Yeah, it's just way too much text. So especially the bottom half, there's too much text. You can see the results on the bottom left are just full of text, and it's completely in a separate location from the actual tables and figures, so the reader's going to have to skip around from the text of the results back up to the figure. So it would have been better to put those key bullets in the headings of the figures. The font is a little too small. And I also, again, didn't love the sort of green and white color contrast. I think a little bit of a darker color would have been easier to read on the white background. I think this is my last one. This is from a colleague. She won't be mad if you critique her poster. So what are some strengths of this poster? Really clear headings on the sections. What else? So I actually really liked this poster. I thought the layout was excellent. Like you mentioned, the sections are really clear. You can see that there's figures and tables, relevant figures and tables in each section. So even for the background, she sort of highlights an important point with a figure. So it just sort of breaks up the text and catches attention. The other thing that's really good about this poster is the study objectives are right in the middle. It's not hard to find them. So again, this difficult vertical layout, you can see the study objectives are right in the middle of the poster, not hard to find. And when someone's just walking by your poster for a second, they're just going to want to know quickly what you did. Again, consistent layout for all of the headings in the text boxes, and I thought this was a really good use of color. The purple may be a little bit hard to read, again, on the white background, but I think the sort of use of 2 to 3 colors with the consistency in different sections was really good. And weaknesses, I think if you look closely, the font is probably a little smaller than what I gave you in the recommended guidance, but I think that this was okay in this setting because it was reporting qualitative findings with small quotes that were below the main results. And then again, the abstract may not be needed depending on the recommendations or the requirements for that conference. So I'll just close with a few important details. So again, like I mentioned in the last poster, make sure that your research objectives are really easy to find and clear so that somebody walking by for 10 seconds can see them. Make sure to proofread, print it on a small scale, maybe just on a 8.5 by 11 and look at it, and then before you print it up on the large scale. Also enlarge all the sections on your screen like I told you to make sure that there's no errors and all the figures look clear, and then have a friend or colleague review it along with your mentors or co-authors. And then where to print. So there's a ton of different sites to print. I can put some resources up on the website, but there's the Emory Document Center that is available on the Prime website, I believe. And there's a bunch of other online sites that will actually print and ship directly to your location. There's even a site that a lot of my colleagues have used recently that will print on fabric, so you can actually just fold it up and put it in your suitcase, and you don't have to worry about carrying around a poster container. And I can give you those sites if you guys want. And again, if you're traveling, just remember that you're going to have to transport it, so if you have a paper poster, make sure you have a plastic tube, or have it printed and delivered to your final destination. But remember, you may have to carry it back. Or again, you can go with the cloth option. So remember that most people make mistakes on posters. Really, an excellent poster is a lot harder to find than an excellent presentation. Mostly, you guys have gone to conferences, you kind of see a lot of run-of-the-mill posters, and there's really only a few standouts. But the most common mistakes are that there's just way too much text. It's not a paper. You want to be able to distill what you're trying to convey in just a few bullets for each section. However, make sure that you don't go overboard in that way. You do want to have enough details that the poster is able to stand alone, even if you're not standing next to the poster to explain it. Keep it simple in terms of how you explain things. Remember, even the most complex things can be presented in simple ways using graphics. And then try to create a focal point to draw the viewer to your poster. And finally, just back to what I told you at the beginning, remember that your poster is a presentation. You want to take it as an opportunity to present your work one-on-one. That's an opportunity that you don't even get when you're doing an oral presentation. You might have people in your field walking by that you can actually get direct feedback from. Make sure to double check the locations and times for when to hang and take down your poster. Dress professionally as you would for a presentation. And then during the presentation, make sure you remain by your poster for the entire session. You want to be able to introduce your poster in 10 seconds and offer to walk the viewer through it for each person who passes by. Prepare a 3 to 5 minute overview of your poster and practice it at least once in advance so that you're able to do it smoothly and quickly so you don't delay the viewer. And then prepare color handouts of your poster and make sure you include your contact information. And that's it. I think there's some poster templates here on your website. And if you guys want, I can give some other links for how you can make your posters online.